against this danger?
Well, I presume you're referring specifically to Edward Snowden's revelations about the National Security Agency efforts. I mean, the fact that governments spy on their enemies is not new, and nor is it new that the domestic population is one of the main enemies of just about every government and every power system. So sure, they're always going to try to spy on and control their domestic enemy. Now, that goes back as far as history does. People who've been involved in activism have always been conscious of this. I mean, I was very much involved in resistance against the Vietnam War, but we never used the telephone. I assumed it's tapped. We never talked about things, sensitive things, in open meetings with probably infiltrators. Sure, and that goes on all the time. But the scale of President Obama's efforts was really a shock. There's never been anything remotely like that. I mean, if anyone who is connected in any way to the electronic culture is being spied on, or can be. If you have a cell phone, the National Security Agency they may not bother, but in principle they have access to where you are, who you're talking to, what you say. It's even true if your cell phone's off. If you have a computer, the same thing is true. The Snowden revelations demonstrate that if computers, any electronic equipment that's made in the United States, computers, routers, network materials, go to the National Security Agency so they can install equipment into them which provides access to every keystroke that you make, everything you're doing. Presumably China does the same thing to the extent that they can. That's doubtless they can't do it on the scale of the United States, which has enormous capacity. This is a system of surveillance and control which is beyond anything that anyone has ever dreamt of, either anything that was actually realized, like, say, the East German Stasi, or anything that was dreamt of by dystopian novelists like George Orwell and others. It's pretty phenomenal. And how do you defend yourself against it? By eliminating it. You have to eliminate it. If it's going on, there's no way to defend yourself against it. And that's not an impossibility. In the U.S. Congress, they came very close to a vote to end all funding for the National Security Agency. They lost the vote, it's expanded, but that's not impossible. It depends on the amount of popular opposition. That's true in Europe, that's true in the United States, that's true in countries with less influence in the world. But it's not going to happen by itself. Like anything else, if you just decide to say, I don't like it, nothing's going to stop. But we have plenty of opportunities for overcoming this real crime. It's a major crime. Actually, it is technically a crime. In the United States, it's an explicit violation of the Constitution. Explicit. You take a look at, use your internet, get back to the first question, and take a look at the Fourth Amendment to the Constitution. It's one of the initial parts of the Constitution. It bans what's called unreasonable search and seizure, guarantees the privacy of persons, their homes, their papers, and their effects, anything they own. That the reason that was put in was because this is right after the American Revolution. And one of the things that sparked the revolution was the insistence of the British imperial masters that they had a right to interfere with individual privacy. That led to confrontations, armed confrontations, in fact helped set the revolution off. And this principle was instantly introduced into the Constitution. At that time, the tyrant were the British rulers. Today, the tyrant is President Obama and the American government. So government lawyers, of course, will try to argue that it's not illegal. That's the job of lawyers, whatever crime is being committed. But there's just no way to make these surveillance activities consistent with the clear and explicit wording of the Constitution. So it is technically criminal. The whole government should be, if laws really applied, they'd all be brought to justice for this. Of course, laws don't apply to the powerful. It's another story. But they should, and the public can make it happen, but only by direct activism, no other way.